This really does cut the mustard, and it's a pretty much perfect match for my gloves, which is always a massive bonus. My name's Guy Kesteven. I've been a professional mountain bike and kit reviewer for over 25 years, and today I'm testing the brand new Trek FuelEX 9.9 XX1 Axis bike. So this is the live ride, first ride review. If you want the up close tech, feature and geometry figure details, then make sure you watch the tech talk round as well. So as is traditional, we're going to start off with the red climb here at Stainburn while I get my head around the handling and talk you through some of the essential specs. So travel is up 10 mil, 150 mil front, 140 mil rear. Head angle is slacker, so it comes with 64.5 in the low slack setting in terms of that Mino chip, and seat angle is 2 degrees steeper, so that's a 77.5 on this bike, but anywhere from 78.6 to 76 between the extra small and the extra large. Effective chainstay length are also size specific, so the idea is whole bike is more centered and more balanced whatever size you go for. And reach on this medium large is 470 mil. Chainstay length on this size is 440 mil. Seat tube length 420 mil, so loads of room for a long stroke dropper post. And like the top fuel, it's gone up to 34.9 mil, so you're running a stouter, stiffer dropper that should be more reliable and flex less at full extension. And then bottom bracket height, depending on how you have that chip, it's either 338 or 346 mil. And just as centered as those numbers sound, that's exactly how centered this bike feels. And the other big news is that while Trek have traditionally had various proprietary shock platforms and tunes built into their FuelEX bikes to get that, well, sales edge, performance edge, whichever way you want to view it, the new FuelEX, they've gone out of their way to make it as friendly with as many other shocks as possible. So you've got that scoop on the down tube, which means that it'll take piggyback shocks plus a chip on the bottom shock mount that actually lets you increase the progression rating. So you can run coil as well as the air shocks that the bike comes with as standard spec. And that's a big and welcome departure in terms of adjustability and versatility over time. Plus, as well as that Mino Link high-low geometry adjustment, which gives you half a degree, you've also got the option to buy plus minus 1 degree headset cups. So, I mean, it's a workshop job, so you have to pull out the lower cup and repress it in and get it properly aligned, but that gives you extremes of 63.5 to 66 degrees in terms of head angle. And that's kind of separate to all the other adjustments, so still get that really nice forward saddle position. And while, you know, it's a fairly chunky bike at 14.6 even with all the carbon, one-piece bar, hollow carbon race chain set from XX1 group, from SRAM, carbon rear mech cage. It's still pedals really nicely. Looking down, it's pretty stable on the shock, even before you put that firm lever onto the Float X. But it's also really nice and sensitive off the top because the shock's mounted on a trunnion bearing, and then at the rear you've got that ABP pivot concentric to the rear axle. And that's something that Trek have had in their arsenal for a long time, as well as the Mino link, and I'm really glad they've hung on to that, because when it's sorted, it does give properly, impeccably neutral ride. And that's really how this feels already. It's just a really nice balance between kind of outward aggression, like a VPP bike or a Switch Infinity bike, and full neutrality, like Specialized or Canyon Spectral 4-bar. So that means even when I'm coming up onto the road, certainly don't feel compelled to flick that firm lever on. Although the tyres aren't the quickest, you know, perfectly happy sat here tapping away. And then when you're climbing up chunky, slightly techy off-road stuff, it's still got a really nice sensitivity and tons of traction. And there's no, I mean, there's a little bit of spit or spin because of the ground conditions, but really good feel for the trail through my feet without it kind of squelching down or compacting, obviously. But one thing I've noticed already, that with all the low speed compression damping off on the rear shock and in that more linear position that it comes in, it done that like using a lot of its travel very easily. So I've already taken it up from 30% sag, which is where I kind of typically expect trail bike of this nature to sit these days, up to about 25, but still blowing through. So probably going to look at tweaking that chip next time I'm back at the van. But the reward is super grounded traction feel, and also, as you see, even at low speeds, loads of pop and play across those little jumps and these boulders here. It suddenly seems to, as soon as it starts popping and hopping through here, it seems to have lost about 2 kilos in overall mass. It's suddenly not this kind of inert, super stable downhill bike. It's a real pop and play pleasure, whatever it is. Feels lovely. So it really is as simple as just switching that little chip around there and then just screwing it back in again tight. So flick the travel ring up again, see what that does to the compression. And I have to say, it's already feeling significantly better in that more progressive setting, even more pop, but still with that masses of solidity. And those Bontrager Line Pro wheels are really quick to pick up. I mean, they're a mid-weight wheel, 1780 grams, but they've got that rapid drive 108 hub on them, so 3.3 degrees of engagement, and the latest versions are double the strength of the old ones, so plenty of confidence for ploughing those rims into stuff. And like the frame, you get a lifetime carbon care warranty, which in a nice touch for the longevity of the bike, also extends a few years into the second owner's lifetime. So if you sell it on, there's still some peace of mind for the second owner. And got a screw and bottom bracket now. It's a definite bonus long term. And well as all the usual chainstay guards and a little metal plate for chain rub, you've also got full length 2-piece dual density down tube guard on there. So if you're sticking it over a tailgate or just bouncing rocks off it on a regular basis, like some extra protective insurance. And it definitely feels more supportive in that more progressive setup. But again, lovely acceleration feel. It really does hide its weight well under power. It's a Jekyll and Hyde bike, but in a really good way. Feels super solid when descending, and then really lively under power. Dramatically so. More so than Stumpy Evo and Hightower, I'd say. And what's interesting is that Trek have kind of repositioned this bike in the line and what they mean by trail. It's now what they call a 60-40 split bike, with that 60% being the downhill element, whereas the top fuel, which used to be, you know, more or less a cross-country bike, is now seen as 50-50, and then the longest travel slash is 30-70. But just feels really, really, I just sorted, totally sorted. I mean, you'd hope so for the best part of 12 grand, but the way it's contacting, it picks up really well on the pedals, it swoops and rolls down the faces of stuff, but it also pops, lifts and tracks really nicely, even though I really don't trust these rooty sections. After the rain, it's letting me make, you know, bold bar leans for the conditions and just backing them up beautifully. Isn't phased by anything, and apart from me pulling my feet out of the pedal. It just feels like I've got the whole track to play with. Yes, Trek, really nicely sorted. Very impressed. Right, now it's time for the always popular game of how many features and details can I run through on this bike before I just get carried away and talking about the ride feel. So, biggest advantage with Trek is this medium large size. I mean, they do, if you include the XXL, which is alloy only, then they do 8 different sizes. Once you get the 29er and 27.5 options in the small frame, and they do alloy and carbon bikes, which all have the same features list, and it's a 3.4 kilo weight for the carbon frame, so you know, fairly chunky once you get all that extra protection on. Certainly a lot heavier than something like Specialized Stunt Jumper Evo, and a bit heavier than a Hightower, but 4.6 for the alloy bike. And there are 2 complete alloy builds if you don't include the EX5, which is basically last year's bike rehashed, and then 5 carbon bikes with Shimano or SRAM kit, right up to an XDR option, or this flagship XX1 Axis bike here. And well, obviously XX1 is the premium wireless option. If you slightly question the wisdom of putting a hollow carbon crank and a full carbon rear met cage on a bike that can take a coil shock and clearly has a real appetite for rowdiness, but it's your choice if you want to go that way. But it's also worth noting that if you built this bike up frame only, even if you paid full retail for all the components, you'd actually save 1,200 quid. But that's kind of a reflection of something that's happening with a lot of complete bikes at the moment, where prices to manufacturers are actually higher than prices to distributors, just because the way the supply chain's going at the moment. But I have to say, in terms of how much it let me chat through spec and details like that very easily, that's a great sign of just how confident, planted and drama-free this bike feels now. Yeah, and just again, like I say, 470mm reach on this medium large, so not massively long. 45mm stem, so although these bars are humongous, it still feels light, agile, precise, and just a really fun bike to ride, even on janky stuff like this. It's drama-free without killing the dynamic joy. That's the whole point of having a mid-travel bike. Woo! And while it doesn't always work, depending on suspension actuation, having that instant rear wheel kick really works with such a neutral back end, because you're not getting tugged back or punished, obviously, through your feet. The only thing I would say is this bar and the big chunky front end are pretty stiff, and these rims, 27mm deep, aren't the most forgiving, so you know, definitely feedback rich. I was being positive and not that forgiving if I was being on the downer about it in terms of ride feel. But again, it's really great for making the most of these tyres and the traction they've got. So, well, my legs are blown today. I'm clearly making a mess of the gear shifts. It's doing a very flattering job, even on steep, steppy kick climbs. And just wrapping up on the rest of the features, you've got internal storage on the carbon and the alloy bikes, so that's just under that levered hatch on the down tube. And one nice touch is that should you lose it somehow, you can get colour-coded hatches for all the different models of bikes, and the basic ones are black anyway, so they look okay. You get full removable dual density down tube protection, as well as the usual chainstay protection. You get an ISCG chain guide mount, and no knock block steering limiter, so you can turn those bars as much as you want. Plus, thank the Lord, Trek haven't put internally routed stem or headset, whatever, on here, so You can use whatever setup you want, and the internal cable and hose routing you do get is now fully piped all the way through the mainframe. So you just slide it in one end and it pops out the other. And while I've gone into a lot more detail, and obviously you can see it better on the tech talk round, so make sure you watch that. You know, this is a proper flagship spec on this bike. You're getting the reverb access, wireless post, you're getting those all-in-one bars, you're getting austenite railed saddle, which Bontrager say is lighter and tougher than titanium. You're getting a little multi-tool there on the headset, and just the whole bike feels really neatly put together. And of course you're getting top spec Fox factory fork and shock, so 36 grip 2 up front with high and low speed compression and rebound damping, which really is the benchmark fork in the category at the moment. And then Floatex shock at the rear. The thing I would say is it's relatively short eye to eye length for the 55mm stroke, 185, while other bikes in the category with similar travel are using a 215mm length rear shock. But it's definitely feeling a lot more balanced and controlled in feel, and still really nice and sensitive, yet supportive with it in that more progressive shock position. So bear that in mind when you're setting up, that from my point of view I'd go 25% sag and more progression, even with the default air shock, which may impact your choices if you are thinking of coil. But hopefully I've got the bike for a while, and this is obviously very much a first ride before the embargo lifts, and you've got space for a water bottle on all frame sizes, although the size of that water bottle does vary depending on what frame size you've got. Plus, using that minor length, you can run mullet if you want to, or like I say, the small comes in 27.5 or 29er size, whereas the extra small only comes in 27.5 to keep things proportional. And one thing I would say about the spec, although it is glorious to use, those deep Bontrager rims on the back do seem to be picking up a fair amount of harsh clanks and bangs. So tempted to actually put tyre insert in there, protect the tyre, because while the rim wall is actually been thickened up on this version, so it's now properly broad 4mm, that should help protect. Still appears to be pretty harsh compared to shallower rims that I've used, like Reserves and Zero Motos and the new Envy Foundations. But it's got a lovely, I keep saying this, as soon as it's got to go up or tweak stuff, like old school trail, it really does feel surprisingly lively for how planted it feels on descents. Although I have a nasty feeling I did just invoke the slide across safety breaker on the rear mech, so don't think that's going to look brand new anymore. But then proper testing is what I do, and luckily the manufacturers know that, But even so, sorry Trick, I'll get the magic marker out. Certainly seems to still be working fine. Whew. And fair play, Fuel EX has made a really light work of the whole circuit. Even though, as I said at the start, my legs are dead from fairly heavy weeks so far. It's just exactly what I guess they've set out to make. Just a really well balanced, easy to ride, yet adjustable and versatile all-rounder for the increasingly fast, tough, technical riding we call trail. God, sounds like I'm writing website copy for them. It's dead good. It's yellow, but it's really bloody expensive. Is that more like it? Is that more raw and relatable? I don't know. You're getting both. Whew. You're also getting greasy rock footage. Oh yeah, and on that note, it's got pretty decent tyre clearance, even with these 2.5s as standard, and a little mud flap to protect that rear bearing. Yeah, I think that's it. Sorted. And while the way the wheel moves in an arc rather than extending back on square faces can lead to a bit more clank when you're descending, it really does give excellent traction and a really impressively stable yet predictable and gripped feel when you're doing little techie climby sections. I think that's meant to be a descent, so ignore that part. Right, time for the obligatory drop test with the shock in the more progressive position, and yeah, full travel, but no nasty noises apart from my mudguard tapping on the front tyre. I mean, obviously this is a first ride, so these are first impressions, and I need to benchmark it against other bikes I've got, like the Stump Jumper Evo, Santa Cruz Hightower, Evil Offering, to really see where it sits in the grand scheme of things. But it certainly seems like a brilliant balance of that trail crushing confidence and capability of the Slash, but that wonderful pop and play agility of the Top Fuel. And if anything, it actually feels more efficient and cross-country ready. Yes! Proper clearance that time. Ring, ding, 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 ding. Really does feel like a proper sweet spot all-rounder, this new Fuel EX. So, there you go. Well, that's the first ride impressions done. And if you want more close-up details and figures in an easier to see and probably hear format, then make sure you watch the Tech Talk Round video, which I'll link at the end of this one. But first impressions, very, very positive. I mean, obviously, it's a premium price bike, and I definitely make that progression switch sooner rather than later. But for such a sorted, kind of sure-footed descending bike, it really pops and plays very, very nicely. I mean, obviously, so I've had limited time on this bike. It's only just arrived. So I need to get in some time benchmarking it against bikes like the Hightower, like the Stumpy Evo, like the Evil Offering, to really put it into position against them. So watch out for comparison videos and head-to-heads with those. But it definitely follows the Trek Top Fuel down that more kind of playful, fun, but still fast and efficient vibe. And yeah, I reckon this is a real contender. So massive thanks to Trek for sending it in for me to test. And like I say, hopefully I can spend more time on it, swapping around shocks, getting those adjustable headset cups in there over time. Massive thanks to Zero Cycling, to Crud XL Fenders, and to PT's Products for them sponsoring the channel. Thanks to my awesome Patreon subscribers who pledge a small amount monthly, which really helps with the sustainability and growth of the channel and the amount of time I can spend talking to you on this GoPro. But if you're already one of my 25,000 subscribers, thank you very much for that. If you're not, please sign up and continue to make the channel grow. Make sure you click for notifications so you know when the next videos come up. I'm going to be shooting more at Ardmore's Enduro this weekend, so plenty of bikes coming, and I've got a huge backlog of test kit I need to talk about. And if you've really liked this, I'm guessing you have, if you've got this far, please give the video a thumbs up. But most of all, tell your mates and spread the word that way, because personal recommendation is really what helps the channel grow and what I thrive on. So all feedback in the comments is everything you want to know. And if I missed, that's a medium large. I'm 180 centimeters and 70 kilos in riding kit, which is probably the most popular question I get asked. But yeah, anything else, just get busy in the comments below. But hope you've enjoyed it, because I have certainly enjoyed getting to know the brand new Trek FuelEX 9.9 XX1 Axis on my classic Stainburn test trails. And keep your eyes peeled with how things progress from here.